We are so glad that you're joining us. I'm very excited to introduce our special guest today, Linda Mastrangelo. Linda Mastrangelo is an author, educator, artist, and psychotherapist with a private practice in the San Francisco Bay Area, specializing in bereavement and dream work. Being a prolific dreamer since childhood, she discovered the remarkable potential of dreams as good medicine and developed techniques that have empowered people to make more mindful changes in their lives and communities. Welcome, Linda. It's great to have you here today.
Oh my gosh, it is so great to be here. Anytime we can talk about dreams, I get very excited.
Awesome. So do I. Well, when it comes to dreams, tell us what you mean by good medicine.
So, yeah, this is something I discovered actually along the way. I've been, I guess you could call it prolific dreamer since I was young, and dreams have always guided me through my lifetime. And it's interesting to see how dreams can be what I call like a map, a guide to not only tap into our wisdom, but it can also show us possibilities. It can tap into our creativity as well as health. So there's something really extraordinary about that relationship to our dreams, especially if we can tap into it. And the good medicine part came later when I was studying dreams in graduate school. I had a mentor who asked us about our medicine, and her name is Kimmy Johnson. She said, "So what do you see as your medicine? As what you can not only tap into for yourself, but what you could give back to the world?" And so for me, it was so instantaneous. It's like dream work is what I can bring. So seeing it as medicine is like bringing this incredible wealth of wellspring of knowledge, wisdom, information, creativity, and there's an empowering component to that too, because it's like we all dream. So there's this wellspring, there's this place that we can all go to and tap into those deeper places, that wisdom, that medicine. And we can, honor that, and we can look at that as something that is not outside of ourselves. That's why I love working with clients with their dreams, because it's a place that they can tap into for themselves. Like they don't have to look outside of themselves for information, for wisdom, for guidance. So if that, so that's how I love holding it as medicine.
Yeah, dreams are definitely good medicine indeed. And you've spoken before about some of the masks that we wear, and I wanted to ask you about that. Can you talk about the masks that we wear and how that shows up in dreams, since you've spoken about this before in the past when I've seen you present?
Yeah, I also teach, so I like to talk to my students about certain, when we go into the psychology of dreams. Certainly Jung shows up, and he often uses the term persona. And persona is basically what we, the personality, the parts that we show the world. We might show different parts to different people depending on our situation. Like we might have a mask or a persona at work. We might have one for our family, or just our friends, or just even the masks we might wear that might hide certain potentials. I can certainly relate to that. Like I know with working with dreams and working in this more deep way, I was doing that, a lot of that on my own. So the mask I was wearing was kind of like showing this outside persona, this outside mask of trying to fit into society, so to speak. But then I was hiding a lot of this deeper, richer part of myself. And so dreams can show us these masks, and they can let us know if a mask might be, stifling us in some way. And this can show up in really interesting ways. Like I'm thinking about, dreams of clothing. And, how many of you have had like dreams like that, right? Where you might be trying on different clothes and the clothing might be too loose or too tight, too small, depending on what this is. And that can give us an idea that maybe what we're trying to, show the world doesn't work anymore. It might be, you might have grown out of it, or it might be loose. So that means maybe we're growing into something. So there's really neat ways we can explore that idea of persona and masks in our dreams. And that can also come out in actually creating masks and working, with that as a kind of an entry point, a portal, so to speak.
Well, so yes, this mask can be metaphorical, it sounds like, in some ways, and show up in ways we wouldn't expect. And I'm glad you mentioned the actual making of masks, because that's what I was thinking about when I was referring to the past when you presented. And I have so many questions for you today, Linda, but I'm wondering if you could say a little bit about mask making in dreams, since we touched on it.
Well, it's such first of all, it's such an ancient practice, right? If we look back to, our indigenous ancestors, we can also look at how this was used back in the ancient Greece, with masks. There's something really powerful and empowering and liberating about wearing a mask and being able to tap into some forces, some parts of ourselves that we may have stifled, we may have like tamped down. And like I was saying before, sometimes that certainly shows up in our dreams, that we may have these, Jung calls them archetypal figures. There might be these larger than life kind of dynamic figures that might show up in our dreams. And one way to really engage with that and explore that is to actually create masks. And I've done that a lot with clients and students, where we might do like a dream reentry, and they embody the character, the archetype that is showing up. And what we'll do is we'll create a mask from that experience. And there's something so incredible about doing that and then wearing it. And then all of a sudden there's this activation that happens. It's really exciting and can really be revealing of what this energy wants, what the potential could be. And that's a wonderful, exciting way to work, right? So we get to learn about what this new energy is and what the potentials are.
Yeah, it is a very, very interesting process, very valuable, and brings great insights. And so there's a lot to think about here, the persona coming through, and then, dream characters themselves. And what can the slew of dream characters, from your experience, tell us about ourselves?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I've had clients bring in, it could be an actual character that they admire, could be anything from a superhero. Like I've had clients share that they were really connected to certain characters when they were growing up as children. Like there was something about that character. It could be a superhero. It could be like, I've heard people talk about Batman to She-Ra to Wonder Woman to, all these different, larger than life characters that really touched them and really inspired them when they were young, and they may have forgotten about it. And then all of a sudden they show up in dreams. And so these characters are often just dormant parts of ourselves that are ready to be tapped into. Like I think about superheroes are really interesting. I know they're really big right now in our society. If you can, we look around and it's like that's a very popular, movie theme. And I think there's something to that. I think there is this part of us that wants to tap into these incredible potentials, superhuman potentials. And depending on the character, I mean, we're going to be so specific. Like for someone who is interested in like Superman, so there might be some qualities there that might be different than Batman. So there's one that's kind of more alien, more feeling like an outsider in the world in a different way than maybe a Batman that might have some more trauma in the past and maybe dealing with more shadow, darker energy. So it's so specific to whoever is, to whatever the character that they're working with. And that can reveal so much, about what that person wants to, maybe explore, but also these extraordinary potentials that they want to untap.
Very cool. Well, I'm thinking of dream characters as more than just people. And so I'm wondering if you also work with other types of characters as well, animals, mythic creatures, and other, really stunning beasts that can show up in our dreams. I've definitely had some.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot, Kim. I know it's one of my passions too, is working with animal medicine. So there are many dreams that we may have that include animal visitations. And that's, again, I personally, when that shows up, and that can happen also in waking life, I include that, those animal encounters. And it's really neat because then it gives us this lucid kind of awareness of our surroundings and our place in nature. And animals can really bring this whole other level of consciousness in the way that they, we can explore their different characteristics. And I can give you an example. Like I often, if an animal shows up in a dream, like I'm thinking of spider, for example. Spider is really interesting because often people might feel fear when spider shows up. Not always, but I've had that quite a bit where the client will say, "Oh, that's usually a nightmare. When spider shows up, I get really nervous. I get scared about it." And then what we do is work with it in a kind of a open, curious way. And we say, "Well, wait a minute. Maybe spider is bringing gifts that you might be uncomfortable, exploring in yourself." And that often is what happens, especially if it's animals, insects, that we fear. It's often this shadow work that we're looking at, like parts of ourselves that we're wanting to maybe tamp down or feel too scared to reveal. We might be feeling, uncomfortable or nervous about it. We might have trauma tied to it. So when I work in that way, I say, well, when spider shows up, oftentimes it's about writing your story. It's, I think about spider, she has the web and she's the first language. Sometimes, in certain indigenous cultures, she's associated with grandmother spider, the storyteller. So we might explore, well, what is there? Are you compelled to write? Are you compelled to write your story? And often, I find that absolutely there is this part of them that may feel, shy or uncomfortable about doing that, but there's this other part that's really calling for them to tap into that gift. And so we might use that, as spider as a ally, as a way to kind of usher us into that possibility of writing and writing our stories.
I love that example, and I'm wondering if you might have some examples for mythological creatures that show up in dreams. Creatures we haven't seen in our waking state.
And again, those are exciting because that can come up in many ways, Kim. Because it's like there's certainly the mythological figures that we may have grown up with. And depending on your culture, your ancestral background, that could be really exciting because there might be something there kind of bubbling up. But so if it's a known figure, like I've heard people bring in anyone from like Athena to Odin, to different different kind of mythological figures. Again, we approach it very similarly. Like, what is this figure about? We kind of explore that, dive into what the possibilities could be with that particular figure, and again, explore like what particular gifts in medicine might Athena have versus maybe Artemis, or looking at like Odin, who's kind of this very shamanic kind of figure who might be pointing to, more healing kind of possibilities. So it's very rich work when we can dive into discovering what these mythological characters might be, trying to communicate. And another other phenomena is sometimes these are creatures that we might not readily recognize. Like I've had some really cool encounters with clients who either they've created a character for themselves. They might be interested in, they might be artists, or they might be interested in working with like comics or D&D, and then I look at the character and we talk about it, and we see how these characteristics are showing up in their waking life and how they're navigating, what these characteristics could be. And that can be really exciting, especially if they've created a mask around that. And I've seen how that could, be this extraordinary process, just manifesting these characters that were in their imagination, and all of a sudden they're coming to life, creatively through these masks.
Yeah, dreams really bring so much to the table. You don't know what you're going to get, and it's really exciting. Yeah, you just don't know. And so I know you work with a lot of clients with their dreams and thinking about ways to work. And you've mentioned Carl Jung. Can you tell us about active imagination or dream dialoguing and how you work with a client in that way?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and this is like an extension of a lot of the work we're talking about, right? There's this engagement with these characters, and you can do that through the mask making, for example. And active imagination is just taking that a step further. It's basically it's a term and an experiential coined by Carl Jung, and it's basically you're dialoguing, you're communicating with these figures. And so what I often do around that is either creating a mask, and then they can wear the mask, and then we have this dialogue that can go on and asking questions. And this is where the dreamer can embody these dream characters and then speak from that place of that being, whether they're spider or they're Athena or Odin or some mythical creature they've created. And we can ask them questions about that. What's your name? Tell us about, describe yourself. Tell us why you're here. And all of a sudden we're just engaging in such a like you were saying, Kim, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what these beings are going to say, but I'll tell you, such extraordinary information has come from these dialogues, and I have done it myself over the years, and I can't tell you how amazed I am time and time again to discover what's being said and what, there's a lot of messages and wisdom that can come from that, which is so rich. And it's one of my favorite ways of working with dreams, for sure.
You bring so much creativity to Dreamwork, Linda, and I'm wondering if you can share some other creative ways that you've worked with clients' dreams.
Oh, sure. Oh my gosh. So I would say it's limitless, right? There's so much possibility to working with dreams. Another favorite, I worked, and this is especially neat if you work with groups, kind of a Gestalt dream theater. So we've taken, one of our group members or clients' dream, and we reenact them. And so each of the group members can be a character. So the dreamer gets to direct and cast and, do the script of the dream, and gets to see the dream reenacted in ways that they may not have been able to see something before. And even active imagination can be applied to that. Like I've had the dreamer, after they've seen the dream come to life, they can ask each of the characters, questions like we do when we do the active imagination one-on-one. And again, so surprising. There's so many amazing things that can come out of that. Other ways, I've done dance, where you can take a character's movement and then, do some kind of exaggerated movement with them, and that can bring up some very interesting things. I've done certainly drawing, sculpture. I mean, it's just limitless, the amount of creativity that can come from dreams. And each time you're getting something new, something that you may not have been able to even explore, understand before doing that. So yeah, it's limitless.
Well, not only is it such a creative process, but it's also a lot of fun. You get creativity, insight, and just a good time. At least I can say that, speaking from my personal experience. I absolutely love dream theater. And, I'm thinking, though, for people who are new to this and maybe struggle to remember their dreams, or are just beginning the dream work process, can you share some tips or ways you would work with a client who might, again, struggle to remember dreams or just want to get started on being a dream worker?
Absolutely. Well, I think the number one tool, I say the best tool we can have, is our dream journal. And that's a wonderful way to start. And again, I think even just having a place to put your dreams, and giving it weight, giving it honor, can help with dream recall, just in terms of just knowing that, oh, I'm going to be remembering my dreams, and now I have a place for them. And I often can give them tips about that, just setting intentions before bed. I'm going to remember my dreams. So that's a neat way to start, is just trying to just make it a practice, having a dream journal right there, and learning how to, even if it's just a snippet, I say, which a snippet is just like a little flash of a dream, or it could be a color, or it could be just a thought, to just write it down. And often that can prime the pump, where, once I start getting into it, then I can, it'll get easier and easier to do that recall. Other ways I work, if, for example, we may have people who really struggle remembering their dreams, and I feel for them. So what we do is we can use what we call waking life experiences and use the same techniques we just talked about, just by taking, it could be a memory, or it could be just a moment in your day that felt significant, and then write it down as if it were a dream. And then what we do is take that material and we bring it into this kind of experiential work. And that again, I found can be just as fruitful and exciting. And then it also kind of brings this new energy to our waking life that we may not have had before. Like, if we started to look at the world and experience the world as if it were a dream, woo, this is where we can start getting into some really interesting territory about lucid waking, which is this highly aware consciousness that can show up. And again, these are just really deep, powerful practices people can do. And it still works. It still works very well with all the exercises that we were talking about.
I think that's really important, because for those who are in a dream group, it doesn't necessarily mean that we won't go through a dry spell. I'll just call it a dry spell for lack of a better word, or feel like at one point in the group we were very active, but for some reason, whether it's a dry spell or another reason, not be able to participate in the same way. But from what you've shared, there's still a way to participate, and there's still a way to get something out of this type of work.
Oh yeah, and like I said, and not only that, but it's like oftentimes, people are really surprised what they can uncover, even if it's just a waking dream. But it really shows that then we start getting into some really interesting territory, Kim, right? About what are dreams, right? It's kind of how the Aboriginals see, the dream time. It's this continuum. So then we're like, our waking and our dream life, pretty fluid there.